Okay, it looks like we are live, and in this video I want to discuss with you some issues that could potentially have a negative impact on your police application, and we'll look at how we might be able to manage some of those issues. All right, let's get into it. G'day guys, Russell Kempster here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I spent 12 years as a police officer in Victoria. I'm really passionate about working with police applicants, and over the last 15 years we've helped almost 4,000 people to achieve their dream of becoming police officers. It's something I'm really passionate about. And one of the most common questions I've had over the past 15 years is, here's my situation, is that going to impact on my application? And it's a really good question, and it does come up a lot. So I wanted to hear your thoughts and comments about that topic, and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you might have around this topic. If you're watching from our Facebook page, you'll probably see above this video, there's a link that says streamyard.com/Facebook. If you could please click on that, and that will allow your questions and comments to come through to the application that I'm using to broadcast into our Facebook page and into our YouTube channel as well, if you're watching from the YouTube channel. Now, once you've clicked on that link, if you just press the approve button to allow your questions and comments to come through, and then could you please just let me know which state or territory you might be applying for. G'day Water, hey, thanks for the comment. I like the little wave symbol, very good, very good. Brenton, hey mate, g'day Brenton, thanks for coming to join us today. So if you could just let me know, guys, please, which state or territory maybe you've already applied for, or the state or territory that you're thinking about applying for, just to give us a sense of where members or where applicants are at who might be joining us today. That would be a big help. Hey Elena, g'day Dale, everyone's here, very good, very good. Okay, so if you could just let me know when you get a chance which state or territory you're applying for, that would be a really big help. All right, so what I wanted to do today is just quickly take you through some potential issues that might impact on your application, and we'll look at how we might be able to manage some of those issues. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen with you, and there's a couple of things here that I think, well, I hope you'll find helpful. Now, there's lots of different things that would impact on your police application, and these are just some of the things that could affect your application. It's not a holistic list, and I'm sure you'll have your own situation that you may be concerned about whether it impacts your application or not. So let's have a look at just a brief list of the common ones that come up for me. I hear these kinds of things all the time. So let me just make this a little bit bigger so you can see. All right, so if you have a criminal history, now obviously there are ranges of criminal history. Something could be quite serious, or it could be, could be minor. But let's have a look at these. Hey, g'day, Ollie. Medical stage, beautiful. Yes, I know your situation well. Thanks for joining us, mate. I'll just have a quick look here at this comment from Bronte Vicpol. Hey, Bronte, thanks so much for joining us, Dale. All right, so let's get into this. If you have some type of criminal history, that will have some impact on your application, and we'll discuss it shortly. Maybe you've got a traffic history. It's possible you've lost a lot of points, or maybe you had a drink driving conviction or something like that. It may very well impact on your application. If you had to tick the box in a police application to say, yes, I admit to using drugs, as a dopey 15-year-old, then that could have an impact. It might be that you have associates. Now, associates are simply people that you know or have some sort of relationship with, who maybe could cause problems for your police application. Maybe they have a criminal record. Maybe they've been arrested before. Maybe there's an issue with them that could have an impact on your application. That's certainly something that does come up. Now, the other thing is social media. There's lots of things around social media that could impact on your chances of getting into the police force. Maybe you've been dismissed from a job and you're worried that that's going to impact your application, or you've got a crappy boss who you think is going to give you a pretty shitty reference, and how's that going to impact my application? Two really big ones are medical history and mental health history, and we'll have a look at those two in particular in a little bit more detail, but they certainly can impact your application depending on the circumstances. Maybe you are in a relationship that's not so positive. Maybe the police have been called. Maybe you've got some sort of intervention order or other domestic violence kind of order. Is that going to impact my application? And then we'll also look at application administration or admin. So what I'm referring to in regards to that is maybe you've made a mistake on your application form, or you've sent something back. I've sent back some medical forms to the recruiting people, and you realize, oh, I made a mistake. Is that going to impact my application? Does it make me look bad? All of these things have come up over the years, and I'm sure you've got some of your own concerns as well. And I'm really keen to hear them, because I want to make sure that I can address some of the concerns that you might have. So if you do have a concern that isn't outlined in that really brief list there, can you just please pop it in as a comment, and we'll have a look and see if there's some consistency for people. Now, I appreciate you might not want to put anything too personal about your circumstances that you're worried about, but feel free to pop something there if there's another topic that you would like me to address. But let's keep moving for now. Okay, so how do we manage these potential issues? Well, there's a couple of things. The first thing is that it depends how serious that particular issue is. So if we look at this little scale here, if it's something that's reasonably minor, like a parking ticket, if you've got a parking ticket 6 months ago, in the scheme of things, that's probably considered fairly minor. If, however, your issue, whatever it is, has increased to the point where it's quite a serious issue, now again, that could relate to any of these things. It may be that you were dismissed from your job, but the circumstances around that were considered quite serious. At some point on this scale from minor to serious, there'll be a threshold. Now, if it's something quite minor, it probably won't have any impact on your chances of getting into the police force at all. Okay? But if it's something more significant than that, where you've lost your license for drink driving, well, that's probably, for most states and territories, it's probably well above the threshold, and it could automatically cancel you out of the application process. So it really comes down to how serious that issue is as to what level of impact it's likely to have. But for each state and territory, there will be that threshold. So of course, we want to minimize any issues, but if we have to have an issue, then we want to try and keep it as minor as possible. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that throughout your application process, you're going to start to accumulate credits or points, and different terms for different states and territories. But if your application to begin with is fairly weak, then that's going to impact on your overall chances. If you've got a strong application, obviously that's going to improve your chances. And now we end up with this, I guess, like a little quadrant that's going to help us to determine what kind of impact we might expect on the chances of getting in, depending on what the situation was. All right, so if you've got a fairly minor issue, again, say something like a parking fine, but you have a very strong application so far. Your exam score was strong, your comprehensive checks are good, your interviews have been terrific, everything's looking very strong, then you probably end up in this area here, which is a good place to be. You're a strong applicant. Okay, you've got one or two minor issues, not the end of the world. No one's going to kill you for that. Ideally, we wouldn't have any. If we didn't have any issues whatsoever, that would be perfect, of course. But if we have a look at maybe the opposite, where you've got a serious issue, even if it's sort of right on the threshold of automatically cancelling you out, but you're a fairly weak applicant so far, then this is going to have an impact on your application. It could be that at that point, so just to be clear, there's been an issue that's on the border of being an automatic cancellation, but not quite, and your application so far is not that great. You might be deemed uncompetitive, and they can see that your score is not going to end up strong enough to get you into the police force. So that might be a good enough reason to kick you out of that process at that stage. So all of these things will come into play, how strong your application is and how serious the issue is that you might have. Okay, so I'll just let that sink in for a sec. I think there's a couple more comments there. Hey, Rajan, hey, good to have you on the call. Thanks for joining us. You probably should be at work, but that's okay. And 4 months, 4 months, no date for psych or physical, rather, no date for the physical test yet. Yeah, look, some applications move very quickly and then suddenly they seem to slow right down, and then all of a sudden off it goes again. So as always, hang in there. And as I often say, just keep your foot on the gas and be ready. All right, so let's have a look over the page here. If we weigh up some of the things that we just discussed, obviously what we want to achieve is far more weight on the seesaw test, as I like to call it, far more weight from a positive perspective than what there might be from a negative perspective. And really in terms of all of the moving parts that could affect your application, it really comes down to the seesaw test. Are there more positives that outweigh? Are there more positives that actually outweigh the negatives? Or are there more negatives that outweigh the positives? So, I mean, really it's much like a seesaw. Let's have a closer look now at maybe managing some of the most common issues that come up. And if we go back to that list, certainly these medical concerns or psychological, mental health, whatever you want to call it, concerns tend to be the most common that I'm asked about. So a couple more people joining us. Hey, Nicole. Hey, great to see you, Dale. I thought I'd jump in and have a listen. Listen away. Good to have you on board. Rajan, applying for a PSO position. All right, cool, fantastic. And the PSOs for Victoria Police applicants is taking a little bit of a backseat at the moment because of the heavy recruiting drive for police officers. It was only a couple of years ago, it was the other way around. So just keep your foot on the gas, and all things that are good do come to those people who wait eventually. All right, so if we think about medical stuff, if you do have a medical concern, I'm going to quickly talk about that before we sort of head into wrapping things up. But if you do have a medical concern, please feel free to pop a comment in there and I'll specifically address that. If we do have any, like a typical example is I've had a knee reconstruction. It was 3 years ago. I'm fine. I can do everything. Is that going to impact my application? If you have had some sort of medical issue or surgery of any kind, again, it's the seesaw test, but and does it meet the threshold? What you can do to be proactive about preventing that issue from having a solid impact is to make sure that you give a complete and compelling picture to the recruiting people. And by that, I mean, get a report from the surgeon, get a letter from the physio, get a certificate, get whatever you can and put together a little compelling case that issue was professionally dealt with, it's been managed properly, you've rehabilitated, you're back to normal work, normal function, you're playing sport. Paint a really positive picture that the knee thing's nothing, don't worry about it. Now, obviously they will worry about it, they'll assess it themselves, but if you can present all of that information in the most positive light that we can, that's going to be helpful. The other reason you would do that is that when you get to a medical assessment stage of the application process, they're going to ask for all of those things. Now, sometimes if you've ever experienced this, and I know a lot of our members have, they need to go and get a report from a surgeon for something that happened 10 years ago. Good luck trying to get a report from a surgeon for something that happened 10 years ago. It takes time and it can be really difficult to get that information. So if you do have a medical issue that you're worried might affect your application, particularly if it's some type of surgery, you should start right now trying to get that information to have it ready when you're going to need it. Okay, so let me just see if there's any questions about the medical stuff. Otherwise, we'll move on to the mental health related issue. So far looks okay. No other comments. All right, fantastic. So in terms of mental health stuff, that can be a big concern for applicants. But keep in mind, if you have seen a psychologist for whatever reason, that's a good thing. You're expected to do that. If you wanted some help with your dietary requirements, I'm getting a bit chubby, I think I better get some help to lose a bit of weight, and you went and saw a dietitian, or you employed a personal trainer, or you signed up for a boot camp, or you got some expert help, well done. I mean, that's what you should do. And the mental health is no different. So if you have a mental health issue, don't be concerned if you've seen a psychologist. But there are a couple of things to keep in mind with this topic. Now, the first is that if it's professionally managed through visiting a psychologist, that's a positive thing. You might need, like you would with a medical, you might need some letters, documentation, a glowing reference, so to speak, from the psychologist that you've been speaking to. Okay, it's important to do that because, like the medical stuff, you can provide that. Now, the other thing that's a little bit challenging, I suppose, and it comes back to that threshold issue, is how long ago was the issue. And some police organisations will expect a minimum period of time where you've had some type of issue that you're working through with a healthcare professional or a psychologist. And for some of those states, it can be as long as 12 months. So if you've seen a psychologist, you're working through some issues, again, minor ones probably won't be a problem. If you've suffered severe depression or something like that, that might be up near the threshold where they expect 12 months of stability and no issues. And I guess proof that there's not going to be a problem for you if you get into a policing role because of the issue, whatever it is that you might have had. Okay, so again, gather as much information as you can to present a positive case. A couple of questions, let me have a quick look at those. Thank you for the questions, guys. I appreciate it because I want to move this in the direction that's going to be helpful for you. Hey, Tim, applied 2 years ago, got a letter from the surgeon saying I've fully recovered. Do you think I'll need to get a new letter? Really good question to you. Well done. Okay, 2 years. I guess it depends how close you are now to actually having to produce that. If you're getting longer than 2 years, I would look at getting a refresher. Just one paragraph to say, I wrote a letter on this date and I basically said this, same as that. You know, that still applies. Nothing's changed from my perspective as Tia's surgeon. 2 years is okay, especially if nothing has changed. However, if you've been back to the surgeon for anything, then you would probably be wise to get a refresher letter from them and include both. Include both if you do have to provide something. Okay, let's see. We've quickly covered some medical stuff, the psychological stuff. Those minimum time frames, it's really very unique to the individual circumstances of an applicant. I know we talked about in that quick list some other things, but the most common ones that seem to cause the most amount of stress for applicants seems to be medical and mental health related ones. So I'll just have a quick, no worries at all, Tia. Thank you so much for the comment and for participating. Guys, just a quick one, if I could ask if you're enjoying it so far. Please hit the like button. It helps to sort of spread the video a little bit. If you're watching the replay and I can't interact with your comments live, please don't hesitate to send us a message just through this Facebook page, or if you're watching on the YouTube channel, you can leave us a comment. But if you do have any questions about anything that we've discussed today, then by all means, just please send through an email, not an email, a message to our Facebook page, and either I will personally or one of my team will respond as quickly as we can to point you in the right direction. All right, thank you, guys. I can see some little thumbs popping up, so that's fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that. All right, well, I think we may as well wrap it up there. I won't keep gabbling on for the sake of it. I am very keen, though, as we finish up, to hear what topics, and I've obviously got a couple in mind that I want to deliver, and I'd really like to start doing more of this to be able to keep in touch with applicants and to be able to answer questions where we can. So I'm really keen to see or hear in the comment section what topics you'd like to cover, what burning questions have you got that I could cover in a future video like this. Ollie, with a lean medical history, any chance of being called in to meet the medical team at VicPol? Look, not really, mate. I mean, when you get called in to see the medical team, it's usually because they need to talk to you about the issue and they might need further information. Can I just say before I forget about any of these issues, whether it's a mental health one or a medical or anything else, particularly mental health and medically related, look, just between you and me, it's about money. As most things are always about money. If you've got an issue and it's not properly resolved and the police organisation feels safe and confident that that issue is not going to come up again in a policing context, maybe you go to a domestic dispute or to a fatal car accident, or any of those issues, or a medical thing, you jump over a fence chasing a crook, is your knee going to blow out again? Because if any of those things were to happen and it prevents you from working, of course, you go onto work cover, you take time off, the work cover premiums go up, they've got to try and replace you. If there's physiotherapy that you need because of jumping over the fence and tweaking your knee, guess who pays for the physiotherapy? So for all of those reasons, they can be pretty careful and cautious and thorough about assessing those two things, which is why it's important to get as much information together as you can and be proactive and to have it ready for them if they require it. Okay, I'll just look at the last couple of comments here, guys. Past employment, most businesses have shut down. Yeah, really good point, Elena. Ex-colleagues, numbers that will help them. I have some ex-colleagues' numbers. Will that help them? Let me just make sure I understand that, Elena, and by all means chuck another one in. Past employment, most businesses have shut down. Yes, if you've lost your job, that may impact on your application, because some police organisations expect that you're employed before you apply and throughout the police application. If you come to apply for a police force, police service, and you haven't been employed for 6 months, that does weaken your application. But having said that, we all know what we've just been through. So certainly I'm very aware that some of the organisations are a lot more flexible in regards to employment, but what they want to see is a really solid employment leading up to when the world went crazy. And if you're able to get back into employment quickly, those two things, a solid employment history and trying to get back into work quickly, will make a positive impression. And even if you haven't been able to find work yet, if you can give them a bit of a running sheet, here's all the efforts I've gone to get re-employed, again, that will make a good impression. So just going back to Elena's comments, I have some ex-colleagues' numbers. Will that help them? Ex-colleagues' numbers. Sorry, I think you lost me on that last part. If anyone understands and it's gone over my head, please feel free to jump in. Ollie's heading off. Thanks, Ollie. I'll talk to you again soon, mate. All right, guys, if there's no more comments, thank you so much for joining me. I think we'll maybe wrap it up there. I don't see any comments about things that you might like me to cover in future episodes, so I'll just stick with what I intend to, and hopefully that's helpful for your police application. Obviously, if we can help you with your journey, I'd love to. We're really passionate about it. My team is as passionate as I am about it. They certainly keep me on the ball, so send us a message if you need some extra help or you'd like some more information about what we do. In the meantime, I'm just checking, there's a couple more comments, so let me make sure that I answer those for people, because that's really important how to do that. Okay, so Elena, all right, excellent. Thank you for the extra information. I'm employed. The previous business I worked for has shut down. Okay, so you're sort of more talking about providing those details, maybe as references or as some type of evidence that you've been employed prior to the world going crazy. And if that's the case, yes, you would definitely provide that information. Look, my general rule, thanks, Elena, thank you for the question. My general rule, hey, Mel, thanks, Dale, thank you for that's nice. My general rule is give them the information rather than, should I give it to them or not? If it's just rubbish, then don't give them rubbish. But if it's general information that's required for your application or you think might be helpful, give it to them and let them decide whether it's important or not. Let them filter it. But by all means, give them the information. It's better to pass it on than not to pass it on at all. And let them decide. Okay, thank you for the thumbs up and the little hearts. That's lovely. I appreciate it, guys. I hope you got something out of today. And I think we'll wrap it up there. And I really look forward to chatting to you again next time. Any questions, particularly if you're watching the replay, then please just send us a message to our page inbox and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. All right, guys, thanks for joining me today. I look forward to chatting to you again soon. Take care and keep your foot on the gas.